Good afternoon. I'm Ken Wright of Wright Nursery, just outside of Stauffer, Alberta, in central Alberta. Our specialty is growing native woody plants from source-identified seed. We do all our own seed collecting. We do our propagating. Oh yeah, and we sell plants too, as well. So when we moved up here, we decided to focus on seed collecting, plant selecting, seed cleaning, propagating. So we basically produce plugs. Although I have some other people involved, and that's changing. They want to grow bigger plants in farmers markets. Oh, walk through the gate and see a pin cherry. This is the native pin cherry. Yeah, there's one outside the fence, but the moose eats it. So, plants. Some are growing, some are 2 years old, some are 3 years old. A bunch of them are just getting started. Propagules and some bigger ones back there. Shall we? We have some really interesting ones. I really like some of these. I like them all. I have to admit, I like them all. But some are maybe more interesting than others. And we'll look at some of these in the field too. This is the Oregon grape. Latifah was talking about this. The northwest limit of seed sources for this is down at Castle Park. But we've been growing it up here and at Calgary successfully. Flowers and fruit and the whole cycle. So it's hardy, does very well. Some dogwood seedlings, some thimbleberry seedlings. These are just this year's potted up. These are some poplars. This is Pascapoo poplar. That's our dwarf one that we introduced. Dwarf balsam poplar. Junipers getting ready for fall sales. So we grow usually in the field or in bulk beds and then transplant into plugs in the spring. And then they'll establish through the summer and be ready to go out in the fall. If they don't go in the fall, then they go next spring. Because everything just overwinters out here. No problem. They're tough little guys. Ooh. River alder. Alnus incana. It's a really nice multi-stemmed small tree. Some people might call it a tall shrub, but we need more trees, so we call it a tree. But it is a multi-stemmed, has a really nice upright form. Similar to birch, except it doesn't have the lenticels and that has persistent catkins. That's the differentiation. Some buffalo berry, that's the russet buffalo berry. That's that short shrubby one. This is the one that they're trying to kill in Kananaskis so the bears go away. Strange thing, strange way of maintaining an ecosystem by eliminating one plant that's pretty essential to that ecosystem. Dogwoods. This is our dogwood. It's one of the best shelter belt plants there is. This one is what we call bulletproof because this is a seed source just downstream from Cochrane. It has been for years, and we've been keeping those genetics going for close to 40 years. Go figure. Tamarack. That's the native larch. This is the one that turns bright yellow in the fall time. Very, very showy. Everybody goes to the mountains to look at it. We just plant them here so we don't have to go fight the crowds to look at trees that turn yellow. Because they turn yellow and drop their leaves, their needles, contributes to their hardiness because there's no transpiration going on through the season. So that was a wise evolutionary move. These are some interesting little guys here. This is the dwarf raspberry. It has a pink flower. Oop, there's a pink flower. Here's one that's open. We call it druby, which is a contraction of dwarf rubus. We think we're funny at times. Yeah. So, but that one is really cool. It grows about this tall and spreads about that wide. So, and it does well in the shade. When we started growing, we were mostly open and full sun. Really focused on prairie plants. That there's no shade in the prairies, or very little. So everything that grew in the full sun. Then all of a sudden, people started asking about what grows in the shade. So then we had to further our research to find things that would produce and do well and survive in the shade. This is another rubus, the raspberry genus. This one has white flowers. This one is the trailing raspberry. So it sends off these cool little runners. And it acts like a ground cover. So it again grows only this tall. Has a little raspberry aggregate fruit, both of the dwarf and the trailing. There's one more in Alberta that we're still looking for. That's the pedatus, another dwarf raspberry. So that one's search is on. Willow cuttings. A number of different willows here. We produce we grow a bunch of willows. Willows are really fun. They're vigorous. They have important ecological features. It's the first, that pussy willow in the spring, that's the first flower that comes out when the bees are coming out of hibernation. That's their first pollen source, even before any of the native perennials come into bloom to sustain them. So we think everybody should have lots of willows in their ecosystems. And we have quite a number so we're always selecting for winter color as well. So we've got pink, we've got red, we've got this new one that's kind of a yellowish, kind of more orange actually, I think. Orangey yellow. I like orange. Some more. These are gooseberry. That's the native northern gooseberry. Oh yeah, and strawberries, of course, because we think strawberries are probably the best ground cover there is. And the strawberries mingle really, really well with the dwarf raspberry and the trailing raspberry, so it gives a really complete understory. Understory is really important for any ecosystem. Oh, good. Look, I just found my hawthorns. I was looking for these. Forgot where they were. That's the native hawthorn. It's really, they're cranky. They're just plain cranky. It takes 3 to 5 years to germinate. So you put the seed in the ground and just wait. Try not to forget where they are and try and remember when they do come up, give them 2 years in the field, and then they get transplanted into plugs. The native chokecherry. Some demand for that still. That's kind of fun. It's a big, these are dogwood seedlings, came out of the field and got transplanted this spring. Sagebrush. This is the woody one, the taller one. Sage canna is the species. There's a number of perennial sages as well, but this one is the woody one. Aspens. Somehow we didn't get stuck. That's wrong. We got the pleasure of growing a lot of aspens for a number of different projects. So that's great fun. Some gold currants that came out of the seed beds, which I have a row of them over there that are in full bloom that has just a fantastic aroma. Just so pleasant. It's the best fruit there is for the prairies. It's a true prairie plant. Likes it hot, dry, and if it's windy, that's fine. Full sun is very important for it. Yeah, we have to mimic where they come from. And that's important for any plant needs to be placed in their ecosystem or their landscape or their design, your design, wherever they are going to be the happiest. So some are very specific and on that. Full sun, please. That's all we want. Buffalo berry, more buffalo berry. This is russet buffalo berry canadensis. And it doesn't care where it is. Full sun, shade, whatever. Give it dirt, it's happy. These are a couple of interesting ones too. That's our native hazelnut. It's a native to central Alberta and north. It doesn't grow down through the Calgary area or southern. So that was a fairly new introduction since we've moved up here in the last 10 years. Quite pleased with that. There's a lot of willows mingled in with my aspens. That's because they blow in from my surrounding wetland, which is okay. They're all right. There's a place for them. People need them. These are just going into their second year. This is the narrow leaf poplar. We picked the seed from down Pecani Reserve along the Old Man River, southern Alberta. I had a contract to clean seed. I do that as well as custom seed cleaning for other operations. I've got some aspen in there on the bench that we could look at in a bit. Saskatoons, got to have Saskatoons. Everybody loves Saskatoons. Everybody wants Saskatoons. Everybody wants to eat Saskatoons. These are young buffalo berry. These are 2-year seedlings. They're going back to the field. Probably, this week sometime, now that it rained, so now things have changed. We can get things into the field. It makes a big, big difference. So nice. But these have a very specific mycorrhizal association. So they don't grow in containers with artificial media. They have to have that soil to form that mycorrhizal fungus. We're not even sure what it is. We just put them in the dirt. They're happy. They do that. They transplant into a container and they're fine. They'll live in a container. They just won't grow. So as big as they are, that's it. Which is fine. That we can live with that. Common juniper. I kind of think it's kind of ironic that it's called common juniper because it's very, very rare in the industry and mainstream. There aren't very many nurseries that grow it. There's another one south, Grumpy's Nursery. They grow it. But other than that, I don't know of anybody. So, the uncommon common juniper. Another fairly rare one. This is alderleaf buckthorn. I have some planted out in the yard we should take a look at too. This one is from the Castle area as well. Goes about so tall, likes it in the shade, it does well. Has a nice blackberry. The birds eat them before I get them. This is a contract grow here. This is our Pascapoo poplar. That's the dwarf balsam. Those are those guys there. I'll look at some other ones growing in the yard too, just to show you the shape and form of it. A dwarf poplar is very, very rare. That's one of our, very pleased with that one. We actually have that registered, so we get royalties on it. But this is an order for 2,000 for another nursery in Edmonton. So, they're looking quite good. They've look like they're rooting in well. I sometimes peek, and my wife would get very upset with me for doing that. No peeking. As soon as they have leaves, means they're rooted. They're on their way. Oh, here's a bunch of aspen. This is 5,000 aspen in this block. These are going to Banff Park this fall. It's another contract we have to go that one. I've also got another, they collect the seed and clean it up there and then ship it to me. And then I propagate it here and then it goes back to the park. That's just how focused we are on seed source and how important it is. And they understand that they only want the aspens from their seed source. So we've got the ability to do that. There's going to be another 3,000 this spring that the aspen is just getting ripe. That's what this fluff is right now flying around. We chase it and collect the seed. Oh, moving on here. Douglas fir. These are 3-year seedlings. And why is Douglas fir so important to the Calgary area? It's because it's the tree of Calgary, their official tree. We wonder why there's so many spruce planted and not enough Douglas fir. There should be more Doug fir because they're so much friendlier than spruce are. And this is a particular seed source we pick west of Calgary out by Exshaw and through the Bow Valley corridor. It's nice and windy. We picked the seed from the North Slope ones, the west end of Bowness Park, right before they were cutting some down to put a stony trail through. Thought we'd grow it to get a jump on it. But because those evolved very specifically as a north face, once our seedlings were up at Bow Point, got about 2-year seedlings, we had a dry open Chinook winter and they burnt out. So they couldn't survive up in the Chinook area. So we changed tactics, found the ones out by Exshaw. Sometimes we go down to the Porcupine Hills as well. There's some probably 500-year-old trees down there. Our brand of potentilla we grow from seed. Seed sources by Ghost Reservoir west of Calgary. Same with the river birch. River birch is similar to the river alder, also known as western birch, Betula occidentalis. Occidentalis, of course, means western, but you all knew that anyway. So it's another multi-stemmed upright form to it. If you go downstream from Calgary, the river birch have kind of a gray bark, not really very exciting, but the ones upstream have hybridized with the white birch, the paper birch, in the Exshaw area. So we get these variations of really bright red bark on them, and very pretty bark, variable from red to orange to a lighter, almost white. As they mature, it really shows. Lodgepole pines. How are you guys doing? Can see new roots coming here. Those white roots, that's a good sign. Those are all fresh. These all overwinter out here. I transplanted these last year. They grow a bit, they get established, and then we let them grow another year. So we're not, really don't like pushing them. I know a lot of the production is greenhouse grown. Get them, grow up, shut them down, lots of fertilizer, lots of water, protected environment, then they ship them out. So they've never actually seen the soil or real life. They expected to survive out there, whether it's reclamation or post-logging that they're covering. This one, we have a maple. This is the Rocky Mountain maple. It's native out by the Exshaw area again. And we see it down into the Castle area. Haven't followed it north to see how far north it goes, but it's kind of fun to have a maple of our own, seeing as how that's our national flag, right? which is actually a Norway maple, and they don't grow very well here. So here's some little gold currants. Oh, this is such a season, I tell you. Everything is blooming this year. Everything has flowers. It's a very exciting year. We're pretty happy about that. So there's lots of flowers means lots of fruit, which for me means lots of seed, which means lots more seedlings. That's how it goes. Let's see. Here's some elderberries. There is a native, this is the native purple fruited one. Oh, they get really excited about growing. They just fill these. So there's the most common one growing around has red fruit on it. That's racemosa. But we have the native purple fruited one. And what we've done is managed to hybridize them. So we have the vigor of the red fruited one, but the fruit of the purple one, which is very tasty because the red one it's not good. It's terrible. People ask us if it's poisonous. It's not. It's not good, and you could never eat enough of it to get sick anyway. Paper birch. This is the X-Shot paper birch, which I really like because it's more of a, not that bright white wood on, more of a golden bark on it, and very, very tough. We had seedlings of these at Bow Point, and then we took the best of them and put in a row there, and that became our seed source. And much longer lived than a lot of the mainstream ones that are marketed out there that are showing now, especially in the city of Calgary, as they cut the tops off, as they die back. More dwarf raspberry. These are blooming. Look at these guys. These are cute. So there'll be lots of fruit on this one. It's fun finding those strange and unusual things. Some of the bigger container stock. Yeah, we've gone into bigger stuff. I've got some people involved with the nursery now. Looks like they're making the move to take over. So I'll be stepping back some. Now that I've impart my wisdom, and then I can step away. White spruce. And we've got some alpine fir back here. These are the subalpine fir. Right there. Good green color on those, huh? I really like them. And there's some Douglas fir there. And then I have a few black spruce. So we have white spruce and black spruce. The black spruce grow up in the usually in the wetlands, and they're quite narrow. Most of them only get this wide and they go straight up. Makes for a really interesting columnar. And a whole bunch of tamarack that I'm growing for another contract. We actually have some ponderosa pine. It's not native, but it's native to Montana. So we've gotten seed sources from Montana. Eastern slope does well here, does well there. The ponderosas growing west of the divide don't grow here. So when you go into BC, those won't grow here, but the Montana seed source. We call it assisted migration. If we hadn't been here, if there was no settlement, or if we hadn't torn up the prairies and paved everything, then I figure in 5 or 10,000 years they would have made their way up here. So we assisted that, and now they're kind of a staple here and doing really, really well. That's kind of the basics in here. These guys, look at this. First of all, number one, it's a great fruit plant, and it produces regularly, consistently, grows about this tall. It does spread a bit. These have been pretty calm about spreading. But and then the winter time, the leaves turn a dark purple, and they stay on the plant, especially if they're covered with snow all winter. And then springtime comes, and there's these gorgeous plants with this kind of leaf color on them. So I've got 3 of them in here that are going to be producing. This one, and there's one there as well. This one has a lot of flowers. So for testing plants, if they go through a couple of years cycles, and if they produce fruit and they have time to ripen their fruit and get ready for winter, shut down properly, carry on year after year after year, then they've passed our tests. We have some pretty rugged testing. Everything has to survive. Part of the reason for growing native plants is because they like it here. Makes it easy. Here's a maple. Kind of showing you the form and the structure of it. It always wants to be multi-stemmed and more of a shrubby look to it. But you got to have one of everything, or I do anyway. The black spruce versus the white spruce. Black spruce grow a lot more narrow, more upright, and can stand lots of water. They're happy having wet feet. The native white spruce, they do not. They don't like that one bit. You can tell this, the difference between the white and the black. The black have a small round cone, and the white spruce have a long gray cone or tan cone. And let's see, all these are pollen buds here. Oh, pollen cones. Can you see the pollen flying? Mm-hmm. We like to help everything pollinate each other. Again, this one's higher up. Can you see the red? Mm-hmm. Those are the cones. Those are female cones. So those will be the seed cones. These are the male cones, the pollen, and those are the female up there. So another very, very good year for cones this year. Quite excited about that. It's a good thing. This is one of our hybrid elderberries. It is the one that has good vigor and good fruit. So it'll be a dark purple fruit, and the vigor of some of these other ones are red fruited. So we leave them sit side by side. So now what we do is we pick this fruit from these. We'll start plant the seedlings out. Because it's a hybrid, we're going to get that variety of purple, the hybrid, and the red. So we'll pick the hybrids and then really start isolating that, so then we can grow it from seed reliably. That's a long term. It takes years and years to do that, but it's only time. This is the sagebrush, the drumheller sage, prairie sage, the woody one, as opposed to the perennial ones that we have in Alberta. There's the pasture sage and the prairie sage. This is the woody. I think it's that really cool twisty bark and interesting forms to it. And a gooseberry growing underneath it, because gooseberries like to be everywhere. This is the russet buffalo berry. We saw seedlings this tall. We saw the 1-gallon pots. The poor skinny things that hate pots. But once they're in the soil, my goodness, are we ever happy. And these bloomed very, very heavy this year too. So there's going to be lots of fruit for this, which is good. The birds like to, essential for birds and bears. So stop trying to control nature. It's enough. Has a tiny little yellow flower. And they have this is just set fruit. can see the little green fruits there. So they'll be ripe the end of June, really early here. And then as the elevation increases, they're later and later and later, and then they're programmed to be ripe in September. So the bears fatten up, get ready for winter. This is a female, and I think that one's a male. So we have the differentiation of sexes right there. Same with the willows. River alder. This is river alder, so give you an idea of that pretty gray bark on it, that upright form, and those really interesting, heavily textured leaves on it. And a broken branch because the moose like to chew on them as well. And here's the, they say persistent catkin, that's what this is. So that's the catkin. Hang on, those were last year's. I picked most of them for seed, but they're pretty cool. And there's still a little bit of seed in there. Whereas on the birch, they have a non-persistent catkin, so as they ripen, then they break down, release their seed. Sagebrush. This is Pascapoo. Pascapoo poplar. So you can see that lateral branching makes them very resistant to heavy snowfalls like we had in Calgary a couple of years ago. They called it Snowmageddon. The arborists were running around for 2 full years fixing trees and cleaning up after it. We went down to the nursery one afternoon, clipped a few broken branches, and we were done. These are the normal balsam poplars. So you kind of see the difference in the form. Those are much taller, more upright. These are much broader and stubbier. That's that dwarfness gene. Ultimately, they get about 25 feet tall, about 20 wide. And that's it. Because it's a native balsam poplar, they're very hardy, long-lived. There's no reason why they shouldn't live to be at least 100 years old. Whereas the hybrid poplars that they keep trying to grow in Calgary, they did that for a while on boulevard trees, 30 years, that's it. It's over. Cut them down. So we've always looked for longer-lived trees. This is one of them. Where to? Oh. Go this way. So you got to see these guys. These are dwarf birch. We call it dwarf birch. If you looked it up, it was swamp birch. We didn't like the name, so we changed it for marketing purposes because there's no rules about common names. So we were flexible with that. But this one, very well behaved, grows about this tall, has that small footprint, makes a great little hedge for a hedge. And in the fall time, they turn orange. So Pam always said there's not enough orange in the world, so the more we do, the better. This is their catkin, and this is the example of the non-persistent catkins. So they disintegrate, usually as they ripen. There's some seed there. We grow all of those from seed. Great little plant, very happy with it. Good performance, and that's what's grown as you come up my road. That open spot there, so that's all dwarf birch in there. This is dogwood outside the fence. The moose love them. They keep them pruned very, very tight. Very tight. But, you know, they keep up with it because Some of these plants like this evolved as ungulate browse. Sometimes if they're not browsed, same with the willows, if they're not browsed, then they don't do well. They need that rejuvenation constantly. This is a bit extreme, and the moose have no control over themselves. They get carried away. I'll show you some that are inside the fence, vastly different. One of our willow selections. This is one we call Sunchild. The reason we call it Sunchild is because west of Rocky Mountain House, up the Sunchild Road, we found it there, growing in the ditch, this really nice form. We were out in the spring. You can see the really nice yellow-orangey color on it. It was really spectacular. It looks really good in the winter. And living in Alberta, what's our longest season? No leaves. Things should look good. So we really like to concentrate between things like the dogwoods and these willows. Have some winter color. It's important. Otherwise people get discouraged and move away. I love compost and making compost. So I got 3 bins here. This one's finished. This goes to the garden. This one is halfway underway, still cooking, still clean, starting. And this is my new one. So as we look down this way, we see all those dandelions. We let the grass grow tall, then I mow, and then I have lots of green to really get the compost cooking. And then turn it constantly. That's making compost. Yeah, turn it often. The sawdust is what we put our plants into. There's an old sawmill down the road, so I have access to that. There's lots of discussion in mainstream nurseries about what works best for potting media. This works best for potting media. They're trying too hard. There's so much research. But this is old sawmill sawdust, so it's very coarse. It has that, it has 2 features, which are totally opposite. It drains well and it retains moisture. How does that? I don't have an explanation of how that works, but those 2 features. And it forms really nice fibrous roots quickly, and it's light to transport, and there's no weeds in it except what blows in. So for us, we've used this for 30 years. It's well proven for our needs. I always start with an elderberry. This is the red-fruited one. This dogwood, this is inside the fence dogwood. And this is our seed source dogwood. So you can see it's vastly different in form, size, vigor. Lots of flower buds on these. They're just coming on. It flowers later in the spring, and then it'll be ready for fall. And we've had 30 plus years experience growing this seed source. Very, very happy with it. It's bulletproof. We used to say idiot-proof, but they're making better idiots all the time. So, what can you do? I've been working on cleaning stuff up here. These little babies, these are limber pine. Limber pine grow up, they like to grow out in the windy, rocky areas where nothing else wants to be growing. It's a, pardon me while we do this, it's one of those 5-needle pines. So there's 5 to a bundle. That's its designation. There's 2 of them in Alberta, the limber pine and the white bark pine, which are experiencing some problems. The white bark is definitely on the endangered. Limber pines are threatened. There's some out by Abraham Lake that we pick seed from that are 1,000 years old. And some of our original seed source down by Lundbrick Falls, Highway 3 at the end of 22. Those were core samples for, they were doing climate change studies. They cored into them because they're 500 years old, and they can count see in the rings how the weather has changed and affected their growth. They grow very slow. These are 5 years old from seed. Now they're just getting into their, finally they make the decision they want to grow here. They're happy. Won't be fine. They'll put on about a foot a year for the next 100 years. That's a really nice big fat cone and big seed. We can look at some seed as well on these. One of my favorite trees. I know I say that, but I'm pretty fickle. Whatever I'm looking at is my new favorite. Here's a row of Mahonia, Oregon grapes. See how they've adapted. So we have really good take on these, really good production. They're growing really well, and we're going to have lots of fruit on these. So we'll be able to demonstrate the quality of the fruit. It is tart. It's quite tart. It's excellent in pancakes, by the way, and it makes a good juice. I think it has some really very, very beneficial things. The seed beds, we're just getting, we haven't gone through our spring weeding in here. These are choke cherries going into 2 years. So these will be 2-year seedlings. The rest of them I dug, and we saw those in pots up there, the plugs. Somebody hasn't been weeding. Me. Roses, they're still coming. So we don't weed until we see the seedlings coming, so we know where they are. The gold currant, these are 1-year seedlings going into their 2nd year as well. That's not a currant, is it? Yeah, if you see this and want to come weed for me, you're more than welcome to come out. These roses just germinated. This is Rosa woodsii, wild rose. So they're going to, this year they'll get about so tall, and they're either transplanted to plugs or we leave them in for another year, they'll be that tall. If we leave them too long, they want to spread and take over. That's just how that's why they're called wild. Yeah. This is messy. Oof. Anyway, dogwood seedlings. These guys just popped up. So this year they'll be so tall, next year that tall. Year 3 they'll be up like that tall. Next year they'll go into plugs. If we leave them, they'll go into 1-gallon pots the year after that. So by germinating in the field here, in the soil, we are introducing them to climatic conditions that are real life, as well as they're exposed to the fungi that's growing in the soil that gives rise to the mycorrhizal association that's essential for their establishment, health, and well-being. If they're mycorrhizae infested, when they go into a landscape, they establish quite quickly. If they're growing in a greenhouse or in a pot all their lives, then they have to go into the soil, and it takes a year or 2 for them to associate. So these have a jump on the ones that are coming out of the mass production. I call it mass production places, and the big nurseries, or sometimes we call them the real nurseries. Yeah, there's lots that's not going on yet, but this is all seeded. Anywhere there's sawdust was seeded last fall. Give you an idea how fast native things grow. These were 2-year seedlings 5 years ago, and now they've grown to this. In fact, they've overgrown. So They're going to be different function other than digging them because they're too big to dig for container or for sales. So we use these for a number of things. We can make essential oil out of these as well. And some of the landscapers we know do the winter pots, and they like to have lots of greens. So this is where those will go. These are smaller, and we can still dig these. We'll dig these next spring and put those into pots. So cool when everything breaks bud, huh? Whew. Flowering crabs. They're not native, but they have a history. Everything has a history. All of our plants have a history. These were developed by a fellow named Les Kerr, who was working at the Sutherland Research Station in Saskatoon. He was developing shelter belt plants, and he was looking for shelter belt plants that would perform well and have good habitat and produce flowers and fruit as well and be hardy. One of the worst things they ever came up with is carrageenan. It has no good useful purpose other than a windbreak, and then it gets carried away and chokes out any other things out. So after they shut down the research station, and most of his work was dozed under, although he does have a couple of named crabs on the market that are still around, so his name persists. These are called the rosy blooms. So we managed to save some seed from the original ones there and growing them here just to preserve. It's more of a historical thing than a native thing, but equally important. And the bees are very busy today. This is actually the first time I've seen the neighbors' honeybees on them. A lot of our big brambly bees have been around. Want to go look at some seed? It's my definition of fun. We keep this caged because the moose and the deer will come and chew things. If they don't chew it, then they step on things. So we do a bunch, we're doing more and more, not more and more, but we're doing quite a bit of seed production or seedling production in these raised beds now. Gives us a little bit more control, primarily for things like juniper and the bearberry. Let's see, I've got a couple of limber pines. Just broke ground here. So that's a brand new limber pine. You haven't even popped your top yet. These are Douglas fir. These are actually going into year 3. But we can hold them here and they can just grow and they'll be transplanted next spring. Lodgepole pines. 3 years more Douglas fir. These are buffalo berry seedlings. That russet buffalo berry that I keep referring to. These are the newest crop. So they're doing well in this perlite. Very, very well. I seeded these in the fall. Now what I'm doing, what we've evolved as we've learned things, is to, when the fruit is ripe, that's when it needs to be in the ground. So rather than trying to keep the fruit and then seed it all at once in stages, now if it's ripe in the end of June, this is ripe, so I'll seed the next batch probably by July anyway. I'll clean it, let it sit, and then once it's manageable, I seed right away. These babies are Saskatoons. So there's a whole new crop of Saskatoons coming. A very good crop of Saskatoons this year. Lots. And something just came up here. This is, oh yeah, these are Saskatoon, Edmonton. We've expanded into the Edmonton area now. As we've done southern Alberta, now we're in central Alberta for a couple of years, 10 years now, and now we're advancing into Edmonton. There's nobody growing native woody plants up there yet, which is weird. Such a demand. You don't even have to do much advertising other than saying, we're open, come on in, and then they sell themselves. This is horsetail. It shows up as a kind of a weedy thing, but it doesn't compete much, and there's spread by spores, and it doesn't impact from a weed standpoint very much. Some more of the common juniper here, seedlings coming. These are 1 year seedlings. There's some that just germinated. These are 1 year, going into their second year. They'll be transplanted into plugs next year. This one is actually 2 year. Ooh, we're going into 3 years now. Interesting thing about junipers and bearberry, I seed them. They sit for a full year before they do anything. And then the spring after year 1 of sitting, they'll start to germinate. Fairly sporadically, so I get germination ongoing for a couple of years. So we can't weed in here and disturb the seed. That's my story. There's some limber pines underneath here that were seeded, and some other conifers. Sometimes the birds steal my seeds, so we cover it. This bed is covered because it's juniper seed and bearberry seed that was seeded this spring. It won't need anything for a full year, so we keep it covered so dandelions won't move in there and other weeds. And this is junipers. They just germinated a week ago, 2 weeks ago now. So there they are. Those are juniper seedlings. Just all excited to be here. So they'll grow about so tall this year and then next year. So it's a slow growing thing. You have to be, well, teaches a person patience for sure. Really, there's no way to rush. Well, there's ways to rush nature, but nature's not happy about that, and it tends to slow things down. So, okay, sit here and watch things germinate. That'll be fine. There's worse things to be doing in the world. There's going to be more junipers coming in these beds too, we expect. This is our shade house. This is for things that only germinate in the shade, or like to germinate in the shade, or happy germinating in the shade. So we built a specific, step in here, you can feel that. Isn't this nice and cool? Here's a few things coming in here. There's these. If you get down low and squint, there's seedlings there. This is the native spirea, also known as meadow sweet, because these were seeded some of these were seeded in the fall. And because it's cooler and damper in here, it's slower to germinate. The dwarf raspberry likes to just make itself available everywhere. This is the bracted honeysuckle coming here. Bracted honeysuckle gets about 3 feet tall. Has a really pretty yellow double flower. Doesn't last very long, but then it gets this scarlet bract behind each fruit. It is really ornamental, hence the bracted name. And there's some clematis that's starting to germinate. You can see the little seed heads start to pop up. I can see it anyway, because I come in here and look, how's everything doing? Grow, you better grow. These were planted in the spring, so they'll be along later. Same with these guys. And these are gooseberries we grow from cuttings. They like it in the cool shade. If I put them in the greenhouse, it's too warm. They'll break bud. They get excited and produce leaves, but they don't. They have to be cool so they have roots before they produce leaves. Otherwise, they just fail. Strawberries, because they like to take over and they think they own the place. Yeah, that liverwort is kind of an invasive thing on top of the ProMix. That's why we've gone to perlite. It's much cleaner. We're less issues. If the liverwort grows too quickly, then it chokes out the seedlings. And that's not good. Makes me cranky. Oh, yeah. What fun. Our fir. We didn't talk about the fir. Well, we did talk about the fir. Do you want to talk about the subalpine fir? This is it's a high elevation plant, but some things come down from high elevation and they do fine. The main thing about high elevation is snow cover. They get lots of snow early, so in October it starts to snow and that provides a mulch, which I think is probably part of the problem with blueberries and huckleberries, because they don't like their leaves being frozen. So they, as soon as they try and bring them down, especially someplace like Calgary that has very inconsistent snow cover, either get snowmaking machines or try something different. But this was the male, the pollen cones. These are all done now. But they were successful because we have some cones up there. So this first year for this one to produce cones. So it's not really under captivity that it's reproducing, but nicer conditions so we don't have to go check on it. Although we do. Part of our business is going to check on, see when the seed is ripe, which means we have to go back there where the plants are growing. Sometimes we have to go camping. I know it sounds like work, but you got to do it sometimes. Here's some thimbleberries that just broke. So as they mature, the leaves will be about this big. We seed this at the top of the Porcupine Hills, down between Highway 2 and Highway 22, south of Claire's home. It grows about so tall. It's got a really nice, lush BC type of feel to it. They're really pretty, and a big white flower. It has a fruit larger than the raspberry, but it's more bland. Nothing sweeter than our native raspberry. That's that. So, step into the seed room. Woo! This is seed room, specifically built for cleaning seed and seeding. So I have blenders, backup blenders, and backup to backup blenders. It's one time I blew one up and had to buy a brand new one, so now I go to the yard sale, I buy blenders. And all my different screens that I need, sieves. And right now, I'm in the middle of cleaning aspen seed. Say, what? This is one I picked up on the road this morning. So, can you see those little dots in there? Those are aspen seed. I usually take a pencil to give some scale. There's one, there's one, there's one. Now the trick is to clean that fluff from the seed. And we have that down pat. We know those tricks. This is an amazing machine. Here's some aspen seed that's clean. So this one calls for glasses. There's a seed and a seed and a seed and a seed there, and a seed there. So this, just to put this into perspective, one of these little guys produced Pando. Pando's that the largest living organism on North American continent. It's an aspen grove in Utah. It's 4 miles in diameter. Some estimates are 80,000 years old. It's so big they didn't even realize it was one organism until there's even a campground in the middle of it. So these have a lot of potential to be world-changing. And then, when I get into the real production, and I do a lot of custom cleaning for other people who don't care for seed cleaning. This is aspen seed I'm cleaning for a fella who needs to grow 100,000 seedlings for a project. This is about 60 grams of seed. It still has the final cleaning to go through when I fan all the extra junk out of it. But 60 grams, there's about 5,000 seeds per gram. So this is potentially 300,000 trees. Yeah, fun, huh? This is how we change the world. Put it back the way it should be, is by producing vast numbers of plants. Some of the other things that we do, these are limber pine cones. We saw the limbers out there, the really slow growing, long lived. These come from a tree out by Abraham Lake. That's, I would say, just roughly estimating 500 to 600 years old. I read one article where they core sampled the limbers. They went in 10 centimeters and counted 400 rings. That gives an idea of the density and how slow it grows. This is where I store my seed. Here's some more limber. This is from, I can stay open, we're okay. So I just pick the seed in the fall and store it in these racks. They'll dry naturally. So here's the limber seed. It's a nice size. By nice size, I mean that when I'm seeding it, I can see it and plant it. Versus this one. You can open this and take a look if you wish. We should probably do that just to get an idea. Because these are lodgepole pine. Again, a whole bunch of, there. Each one of these guys will give rise to a lodgepole pine. So we'll have a guessing game. How many are here? And whoever guesses right has to count them. And then you get a free tree. So these are a little harder to manage than the limber. I like the limber because they're big. And just, what's nice about seed, I can store it. Storage requirements. Just what do they need to germinate? They need heat, they need moisture, they need sunlight. So if I keep them cool, dark, and dry, I can store seed for, I really don't know how long. This is from 22. I just did a germ test on this and it's still really good. Here's a bag of limber pine. This is, this is from Lunbrick Falls. That's just how sticky they are. That's some pitch that's dried up. So that's limbers. I might have an order for 5,000 of these once I get it squared away. This is the black spruce. Most of these are shed, but there's a couple of, let me see if I can grab a couple of those. Yeah, there's a seed. That's 2 black spruce trees there. So quite small. The tamarack is about the same size as that too. Very, very Douglas fir cones. This is my byproduct. I've already shed all of the seeds out of here. But some of the artsy people like my cones, and I keep them so they'll use these in their displays or whatever. And then I've got all my other seed. Deciduous stuff is all up here. Alphabetical by genus. This is wild rose. So those hips that are out there, there's a dozen seeds in each hip. So we just dry those down and run them through a blender. Oh yeah, these are my backup blenders. I'm pretty hard on blenders, so I like to be prepared for that. I throw everything through them. A lot of anything that has a bit of an oblong seed is good through the blender. If it has a round seed, and there's dogwood and chokecherry have a round seed, it doesn't work. It just eats the seed. The mechanics and the physics of it I don't understand. I just know that don't throw your dogwood seed in the blender. Here's some dogwood seed. It'll be a white fruit in the fall time. And nice little seed. Silverberry. Elaeagnus, oops. It's a really pretty seed. Yeah, the blender doesn't like this, but it's kind of fun anyway. And it goes on and on and on. I have my own fridge. I got kicked out of the house years ago, so it's pretty empty right now. Springtime, this is full of cuttings and seed stratifying. There's a few things still in here stratifying. Stratification is treating cool, moist, in plastic to break dormancy. So this is one of the things we need. And knowing what they need and how long they need, that's taken years to figure out. So the birch, these will actually survive in here for another year because there's no light. So they need light in order to germinate. But it's pretty empty, and pretty soon it'll be full of seed again, and then that'll cycle through, and then it'll be full of cuttings in the spring, and then that'll cycle through, and now we can clean it if we were into cleaning refrigerators. That's some of our essential oils. This is black spruce.
That's nice.
It's nice, huh? Yeah.
And is that in a carrier oil, or is that?
No, that's just the straight oil. And this is lost some of its potency because it's a couple years old. This is the alpine fir. It smells like Christmas.
Lovely, yeah.
And we also have lodgepole. We've been trialing a number of different things over the years. It's a lot of fun. So if we're doing any pruning, then we will keep our branches separate. So if we're like in those lodgepoles and pruning up the base of them and have a bunch of branches, run those through the chipper and then run them through the oil distillation unit. And then we sit there, ooh, ah, that's nice. This is lodgepole. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a tab to really kick it loose. It's pretty subtle. Production in this side, keep it on the outside of the building. We put this cover on, added it to this building. So I've got my pot mix. We throw it in here. We throw it in here into the mixer. We add water to it. There's two schools of thought. Oftentimes, especially in big production nurseries, they just dump this in and fill their trays, and then they plant their seed in, and then it goes through watering. But I like to have it wet before we put our seed in and before the cuttings. Then we throw it up on this bench. And I've got all these fancy trays that we've moved to. Fill the trays here, stack them up there, they go in, get seeded, they go back out there. Or cuttings, whichever. Or seedlings. We'll transplant seedlings into these at the same time. So we're transplanting seedlings from the seed beds. We're putting in cuttings here, and sometimes we start seed in these. Things like birches that are tricky, that alders that need full sun in order to germinate. So we do those in the greenhouse under more controlled, so we don't have the control out there in the ground with constant water and that type of condition. So it's been, once you build your second nursery, you sort of know what's the most efficient way to do things. So this was actually basically designed for two people. So Pam and I were running this for 5 years until she's gone, and then so I've hired a few other people in the meantime. So it's gone quite well. And now I've got a really keen young lady working for me I think she's going to take over and probably send me out to pasture. Probably time. I'll go camping and seed collecting. That's be my focus. That's what I can do. Yeah. That's it. Thanks so much. This has been lots of fun telling telling stories.
Thank you so much.